Hi guys, and welcome back to another VGC 2019 Sun Series Pokemon guide, and today we'll be looking at Mewtwo. So the original legendary restricted Pokemon from the Pokemon series, a very powerful Pokemon and one that's not seeing too much usage, but hopefully after this guide you'll have a bit of a better understanding of it and may want to try it out, because I think it has got a lot of potential, especially in a format without Z-moves, without Megas. Its base speed alone is very good, and it's a very hyper-offensive Pokemon. But it doesn't need to be. It does have a lot of options, a great move pool, and lots of options to support your team and operate in a very offensive and threatening way. So without further ado guys, also if you haven't checked out the other guides that we've had coming out so far, make sure you do check out. Yesterday's guide was on Yveltal. We've covered Xerneas, Kyogre and Groudon as well already, so if you haven't checked them out already, make sure you go back and have a look at those. But on to today's episode. So Mewtwo, let's have a brief overview of it. Again, these box stat things are all pulled from Bulbapedia. They will be linked in the description below if you want to jump over to the page and have a look at Mewtwo a bit more in depth yourself. So we can see it's got a base stat total of 680, very standard for a restricted Pokemon. Base HP of 106, 110 attack, 90 defense, 154 special attack, 90 special defense and 130 speed. So the ones that jump out are really going to be that special attack. 154 base is just incredible, and the base speed as well for a restricted Pokemon. Very peculiar. You don't get restricted Pokemon normally this fast. It is the fastest restricted Pokemon that we have access to. A base 130 speed time with things like Tapu Koko. So very fast, very offensive, and can do a lot of damage if not really well prepared for by your opponent. And like I mentioned before, it has a very good move pool as well, access to a lot of status moves and a really versatile kind of coverage pool as well. Obviously it is a psychic type with the ability pressure. Unfortunately I don't believe that we have access to the Unnerve hidden ability Mewtwo as of yet, so you have to kind of run with pressure. Just still, it's got its usage, but it's obviously Unnerve would be so good right now. Psychic typing weaknesses: Bug, Ghost and Dark. It's not immune to anything unfortunately, but resists fighting and psychic, and then hit normally by everything else. So that's a quick overview of Mewtwo. Now let's look at some sample sets for you guys. So the first one I've picked out is a very standard sample set, very taking advantage of that speed and the special attack of Mewtwo, really highlighting those two areas and making use of it. Going with a Life Orb to get extra support, boosting those moves by 30%. You will take recoil damage of course, but we're maximizing the speed with a Timid Nature, 252 speed EVs, 4 special defense and then 252 special attack, so getting the most out of everything. The moveset I've went for is Protect, Taunt. You've got a choice of Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Ice Beam or Aurora Sphere, whatever fits your team best, and then Side Strike, which is its base 100 attack power, psychic type attack, so just making sure that you can be hitting like a truck. It will be doing so much damage, and the thing is, like, I kind of personally prefer Side Strike and Shadow Ball at the moment for what we're seeing in the format. Things like Lunala, Solgaleo, Duskman, Necrozma, Tapie Lily, the list goes on. That Ghost typing in this format is very good, and I think the combination with Side Strike, Shadow Ball gives you good coverage against everything. You don't necessarily need to run Taunt, but I do feel like it's a nice option on Mewtwo. It's so fast, it's going to be able to shut down anything that's trying to set up like Xerneas, things that are trying to disrupt you like Smeagol, Moonguss, things like that. So although a Moonguss you can just Side Strike, but you get my gist with the reasoning behind Taunt. It's so fast Mewtwo, it can make use of that Taunt very nicely. But there's not really too much else to say about this sample set. It is just going to act like a very fast offensive sweeper, whether you use that early game to kind of punch holes in your opponent's team, especially if they're unprepared for it, or whether you use it late game is a good sweeper, and it can be very effective like that. The next set that we're going to look at is very similar to this one, but we've dropped the life orb and went for a choice specs variant. Same EV spread, same nature. We've obviously got rid of the taunt because you don't want to lock yourself into taunt with specs. You want to make use of the choice specs. And we've got Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, Flamethrower and Side Strike. It gives you really nice coverage across the board with everything that you need. Side Strike is a stab attack. You've got the Shadow Ball again, which personally I think is very useful at the minute. We've covered that. Ice Beam gives you more or less good coverage against flying types and things, other dragons and things like that you might see, Groudon in particular. And then Flamethrower as well is a nice option, especially if you're playing with Groudon. You've got the Sun Boost, and you can really hit like things like Bronzong for really big damage and other Pokemon that are fire weak in the format. So you could obviously interchange that with Thunderball, and it is really kind of what would be best catered to your team. You know, if you want Aurora Sphere there to fend off maybe dog types like Sinor, Tyranitar and things like that, then you can always swap out like the Ice Beam, Shadow Ball or Flamethrower. I would say the stable on the set is going to be Side Strike. You're going to want that stab attack because of just the power Mewtwo has with it. So again, pretty straightforward, but a sample set for you guys to try. And this thing will just like absolutely punch holes through your opponent's team. And I mean, like, if it gets any room to just throw out attacks, it's whatever it's hitting, even resisted stuff to a certain extent, it's going to be doing big damage to. So it's very threatening. It's a bit of a glass cannon. Mewtwo, it hasn't got the best defenses in the world, so you have to play with it well and you have to support it well, but there are a lot of options in this format to help support Mewtwo and get it working. So we'll move on to those a bit later, but that kind of covers the choice specs sample set. So the next one we're going to look at is a Super Berry set. So it's a bit obscure, but I think it's always nice in these guides if I do throw in some different, I guess, options for you guys to look at. And you know, it might not be the right one for you, but it just shows that there are different options to use these Pokemon with, and that's the thing. What I like to try and do is give you different options, give you thinking outside the box almost with certain things. So we've got the Super Berry on Mewtwo. We've went for a modest nature just to maximize attack as much as we can, and because we are kind of compensating in speed and attack for those defense stats, and I feel like with the berry it's probably quite useful to do. You can get quite good defensive calcs actually with Mewtwo, even though it is kind of seen as a glass cannon. I've referred to that already. You can, EVing it, you can get a lot out of Mewtwo, so it's not as frail as everyone kind of thinks it is sometimes. We've got a moveset of Protect. Now the next slot you can go for anything. I like Substitute with the Super Berry because if you're in a position where you can sub, you can proc your own berry that way. There's also Taunt, we've already covered. You've got Speed Control with Icy Wind, Disable, and Will-O-Wisp. Will-O-Wisp's quite a nice option against stuff like Solgaleo, because you can't intimidate it with its full metal body ability. So one of the ways to get around that is obviously Will-O-Wisp. So Will-O-Wisp's a really nice option. You can burn Groudon as well. Another physical threat in the format. You could obviously go for 3 attacking moves if you wanted to with this set. Again, it just falls back totally depending on how well it would work within your team. Shadow Ball for the third slot is going to be Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Aurora Sphere. Again, depending on your team, depending on what coverage you need, and then Side Strike is the last option there. And just to give you an idea of what this EV spread does, so 12 HP, 4 defense, 124 special attack, 228 special defense, and 140 speed. So the speed stat allows you to outspeed all max speed plus nature base 100s and below. So that's everything from like Yveltal, Xerneas, other things like that. You're going to be able to outspeed. So in that situation, like Taunt, Icy Wind, Disable could be quite nice. You're going to survive with the defensive calcs. You're going to survive a Timid 252 special attack Lunala, Moonbeam Geist, which is pretty nice. And you're also going to survive a modest 252 special attack Kyogre, full HP Water Spout in Rain, which is nice. So you will take that. It'll just proc the berry and put you back up to 50% health, and then you can smash it with like a Side Strike, and then the next Water Spout, if it is Scarfed for instance, it's not going to be able to pick up a KO. So it's just a variation on how you can use Mewtwo. It's a different sample set, and one I think could be quite useful in some teams. So with that said, we'll move on to our next one, which is going to be the Assault Vest Mewtwo. So we can grab this little Assault Vest and kit our little Mewtwo up there. Fits on it perfectly, doesn't it? I'll take it off, it looks terrible. Going with this EV spread of, we've got a Timid Nature, we've got 236 special attacks, 28 special defense, and 244 speed. This investment, a very small investment in special defense, survives +2 Moonblast from Timid, 252 special attack Xenia. So after the Geomancy, you know you can take a Moonblast, which is really nice. It underspeeds Tapu Koko by 1 point for Lunala matchup, and this is really specific. Okay, so Lunala with its ability, it works a bit like multi-scale. So if it's full health, all damage is going to be halved. So if you pair it, in one pairing we'll look at in a minute, is Tapu Koko. If you pair it with Tapu Koko, you underspeed Tapu Koko by 1 point. Tapu Koko then goes for a Dazzling Gleam, breaks that ability. And then Mewtwo is going to be able to pick up the one-hit KO with Shadow Ball, which is really nice. So taking that big threat out of the situation as well. You can also deal with Yveltal in the same regard. You know, the Ice Beam Dazzle Gleam is going to pick it up most of the time. So really nice combination with Tapu Koko there, and that is the reason right here for that speed stat. You don't need to really worry about the speed type of Tapu Koko anyway, because you've got the Assault Vest. You're going to be able to out damage it and survive its attacks pretty easily, and especially with terrain support of your own to get rid of that electric terrain, you're not going to really worry about it anyway. So I don't feel like you're losing anything by doing that, and what you can do with that just little tiny speed drop when pairing it with Tapu Koko is pretty nice, especially within this format. It makes that kind of pairing like really nice. And mentioning that pairing, we'll move on to partnering Pokemon for Mewtwo, and the first one is, guess what? It's Tapu Koko, of course. Yes, I personally think Tapu Koko, I haven't seen it being played very much, but I do feel like Tapu Koko is a very, very good partner for Mewtwo. It's obviously, we've covered this in other guides, Electric Surge ability, its type in is Electric Fairy. It is another base 130 speed Pokemon, so it's a very fast offensive kind of pairing, and a very strong lead as well. Supports Mewtwo against Yveltal extremely well, so threatens Yveltal, one of Mewtwo's really nemesis, just cannot compete with it. And one of the reasons through the sample set you'll not see really any defense investment is because one of the things that you would look to probably try and do is take some attacks from Yveltal. Now you can take, like, if you've got Intimidate support on your team, you can take Sucker Punch pretty easily without any investment, but you're struggling even on a minus nature attack and no attack IV to survive the foul play. It's still going to be able to it's a roll, so you can't really avoid that. Knockoff, obviously another thing that is just uncalculable. So you're going to need Sash in those situations, so that's another sample set you could look at. You could go down the Sash route with Mewtwo, and it's not a bad idea either. But I feel like for that reason, Tapu Koko threatens Yveltal so hard, and it's such a good check to it. It really puts it off. And like I said, with the previous sample set that we looked at for that instance where you underspeed Tapu Koko by 1 point, you don't need to run that just on Assault Vest variants. You can run that on all of your Mewtwo variants to deal with Lunala. Because all you need to do is break that ability, just chip its HP a tiny bit, and the Shadow Ball from even like min invested Mewtwo is going to pick up the KO on Lunala, which is really nice. Well, not min, but you're going to need a little bit of investment in the special attack department, but it is a very nice combination. There we go, we've covered the Lunala stuff. The Terrain protects against Sleep Abuse, which is also very nice, hyper offensive. Dual base on 30 speed Pokemon, and the other thing that Tapu Koko obviously always offers is that fast pivot option, which allows you to really excel in board positioning and repositioning to make your momentum in battle a lot better than it would have been the previous turn or whatever. So yeah, I really like Tapu Koko with Mewtwo, so it's something I think I would really advocate trying out. It's obviously got its weaknesses, but you've got 4 other Pokemon in your team to pick to cover those weaknesses and cover things, so you don't just stick with 2. But I do believe this partnering is very good, and another very strong partnering pairing is going to be Mewtwo and Tapu Lily, so it's quite obvious why it's going to be. Tapu Lily has the Psychic Surge ability. It is a Psychic Fairy type. It does bring that Psychic Terrain, which helps me to avoid any priority attacks, namely Sucker Punch from Yveltal. And it also boosts Mewtwo's psychic attacks as well, which is just ridiculous. So imagine if you had a Life Orb with the psychic terrain out, like not much is going to be surviving those side strikes. And then Tapie Lily, obviously with its fairy type, and complements Mewtwo's weaknesses pretty well. Namely its dark type and weakness from Mewtwo, so you're going to be able to pick off those dark types a lot easier with Tapie Lily. And like if you go Scarfed Tapie Lily with Mewtwo, I really feel like that is such a strong pairing as well, and it can do so much damage. It can just like punch holes through stuff, stop your opponent really being able to do so much setting up on their side of the field. And then you've got 2 Pokemon in the back to come in, and as long as they're solid enough, you've got another restricted Pokemon. Maybe Bronzong and Groudon could work, or a variation on that Mimikyu Groudon could work in the back for this sort of team, just to come in, clean up, and have another mod to operate around. But very good partnering Pokemon, I feel, for Mewtwo. So we'll move on to the next one. It's going to be a good old little mushroom friend of Moonguss. I do feel like Mewtwo suffers, it really does suffer a lot from single target attacks, and if you look at the ghost typing attacks and dog typing, there isn't really any spread type attacks other than Snarl. Snarl you'll be able to survive. It's obviously going to be annoying to deal with, but other than that, the big attacks that are going to be knocking you out, like Knock Off, Sucker Punch, Foul Play, and things like that. Moonguss with its redirection is very useful for Mewtwo, kind of just protecting it, allowing it to operate and do its kind of job, because you want some returns on Mewtwo when you're running it. You're going to want to be picking up KOs quickly, and with the redirection it really does allow you to kind of swing the momentum in that side of the field. It's also very slow, like we know. It's going to be good if Trick Room is set up. Like, your opponent probably sees Mewtwo and thinks, right, I can't outspeed it, I don't have Tailwind, I've got Trick Room, let's get the Trick Room up, and then I have a way better option against it. With the Moonguss as a partnering Pokemon, or just partnering in a team with Mewtwo, you've got the option to bring it in and really disrupt your opponent's Trick Room mode as well. Spore is nice disruption on your opponent's side of the field, and obviously the Clear Smog as well to remove stat boosts and things like that if Mewtwo is unable to taunt something and stop it setting up. So yeah, I do really like a Moonguss with it, but you could also link this in with like something like Togekiss, Smeagol. Any redirection really works quite well, I feel, with Mewtwo. I just put a Moonguss here because it has that ability to work, like I talk a lot about the different speed spectrums. So you've got Mewtwo at the top end, and then at the bottom end you've got a Moonguss. So they both work pretty nicely and kind of can work with no speed control in the field as well. So that's one of the pairings I have highlighted. Another one is going to be Incineroar. So Incineroar, it's one of the most popular Pokemons in the format for good reason. It's got the Intimidate support, which is going to further protect and help Mewtwo. Lauren knows big attack stats on the opposite side of the field with its Dark and Fire typing. It's got Fake Out support as well to allow Mewtwo to get those attacks off or just do something that you want it to. It's got super nice defensive synergy, so it's a really good switch in Incineroar for Mewtwo, not only for Ghost and Dark type attacks that are coming onto it, but at the same time you're going to be able to cycle Intimidate, which is just really valuable. And the other thing we all know Incineroar offers is a slow U-turn for pivoting board position, so it's like the opposite end to what Tapu Koko can do. Tapu Koko can get out quick and you can reposition your board quickly, but Incineroar allows you to get something in most of the time undamaged and reposition that side of the match. So yeah, I do like Incineroar. And the last partnering example that I'm going to throw up is Tyranitar. So Tyranitar is a Dark Rock type. Sandstream ability brings Storm to the field, and it, again, like Incineroar, because of its Dark type, and it's got really nice defensive synergy with Mewtwo. Its slow base speed as well gives you really good weather control against like Kyogre primarily and Groudon. And then you've got great offensive checks to Yveltal and Lunala again, which are like Mewtwo's biggest threats, I would say, in this format. And again, a little bit like Moonguss, because of its slow base speed stat, Tyranitar can work pretty well under Trick Room. So it's kind of, if your opponent does go for the Trick Room, then at least you've got some means of a slow Pokemon to operate under that situation. So I do like that pairing a lot, Mewtwo, Tyranitar. Right, so I think we've covered quite a lot of partners. We've covered some sample sets, so let's just get on to the end bit, which is the threats and counters board. Obviously, top of the list is going to be dog types, Yveltal, Incineroar, Tyranitar, Alolan Persian. The list can go on and on and on and on and on, but I've just highlighted these 4. They're going to cause Mewtwo a lot of problems. If Mewtwo's got Aurora Sphere, it can deal with the likes of Incineroar, Tyranitar, and Alolan Persian not too bad. Because he's going to outspeed all 3 of those. The problem with that with Yveltal is Yveltal gets access to Sucker Punch, so that is pretty threatening if you've got no means of protecting Mewtwo around that, and because of its part flying type, and it's only going to be neutral damage onto it, so you're not going to be able to cleanly pick up a KO. We all know how bulky Incineroar is, so without Helping Hand, Life Orb support on Mewtwo's side, you're probably not going to be picking up the KO with Aurora Sphere there either. So they're very threatening, and you're going to need to have, if you're playing Mewtwo, you're going to have really good checks for these particular Pokemon, and dog typings in general, good switch-ins and good ways around them. The next one's obviously going to be Ghost typing, because it's Mewtwo's other big weakness. I've just listed here Drifblim, because of its Unburden boost, can outspeed Mewtwo and do a lot of damage to it with Shadow Ball. Because normally you're going to see Drifblim with a special defensive boost, it's probably going to be able to take Mewtwo's attacks pretty comfortably. You've got Gengar as well. You normally see Gengar with Focus Sash, so that can be a massive pain to deal with for Mewtwo. And Lunala as well, obviously with that ability. It's going to be able to, if you can't chip that HP before you attack it, it's going to be able to survive. And you saw how much special defense investment you needed just to take a Moonbeam Geist from it, so it is a very threatening Pokemon for Mewtwo, although you do outspeed it. As I say, if you're not able to chip down that HP before you can get an attack off, you're in a world of trouble. Aegislash as well is a very problematic Pokemon. It's slow, it's going to be able to take the Shadow Ball, Side Strikes, all sorts, and probably pick up the KO in return with Shadow Ball. And Mimikyu kind of in that same boat as well with its Disguise ability, going to be able to take an attack without any damage and then return with big Shadow Claws and other options around there, set Trick Room up and stuff like that. Checks in walls, I've got Dialga, Bronzong, Duskmane, Necrozma and Cresselia, because mainly these are all Pokemon that are going to be able to tank Mewtwo's attacks, even the biggest attacks, boosted attacks, Helping Hand supported attacks pretty comfortably, and get Trick Room up and really disrupt Mewtwo's ability to operate on the field. Cresselia in particular is just going to shrug off most of those attacks from Mewtwo. You've got Flamethrower that can do some damage against Duskmane, Necrozma and Bronzong, but they're so bulky they're going to be able to take it anyway. And then Bronzong has the option to run the ability Heat Proof, so if you go down that route, Shadow Ball can do a good job against them as well, but like I say, they're so bulky they're going to be able to take those attacks pretty comfortably and get those modes of speed control set up and really ruin your day. And then we're going to finish off with bug types. So these are something that you don't see so commonly used to combat against Mewtwo, but Pheromosa is going to be able to outspeed Mewtwo, and it is going to be able to pick up a one-hit KO pretty easily, so it's a big threat. You're going to need something to help with that, like Redirection here really helps. Obviously having other members of the team as well can, like Scoffed, Tapie Lily for instance, could really help against that, just for an example. Volcarona as well can boost up in front of Mewtwo. It can be very bulky, so it can get those Quiver Dances off and then threaten with Bug Buzz. And then Araquanid, you've got to be careful. If Trick Room gets set up, Araquanid come in, it's got Bug Bite, Lunge, all sorts of bug type shenanigans that can really threaten Mewtwo, and it's got decent enough special defense as well to be able to take a lot of those special type attacks that Mewtwo is going to be throwing out as well. So I think that rounds it up, guys. Mewtwo's a bit of an anomaly to kind of look at in these guides, because it's not something we see so often, but it's not something I would say to ignore. Because if your opponent is playing it and you haven't got a clue what it's all about, if you haven't got a clue what it's going to be doing, it's got the potential to rip through your team. You've got to be very careful around Mewtwo, and I do think it's got a lot of potential, but it's a very niche pick, I think, in this format. You're not going to see it too often, but when you do, if your opponent's really savvy with it, it can do a lot of work. So it's got a lot of options. It can Trick Room, it can disable, it can do a lot of things to disrupt your team, and the speed and special attack stats are nothing to ignore as well, because it will, like I've said throughout this guide, punch holes through you if you're facing down against it and you just don't respect it. So it's something you need to be aware of, and I hope this guide has just covered a few of the basics for you guys and given you an idea of how to use it. If you go out and try it out, let me know what you think about it. I really personally like Mewtwo. We will be playing on the channel at some point, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But I'm going to end the guide here, guys. We'll be back with another guide very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and all that jazz, and I will see you very soon. So until then, guys, take care and bye-bye!